So without further ado, everybody, my name is Ravi Brahmbhatt. I'm the Director of Student Innovation and Entrepreneurship at HCC. Very thrilled to have a collaboration with our HCC Speech and Communications faculty group, as well as our HCC Foundation Board Chairman, Mr. David Regenbaum here, and for learning about effective communications. We will be learning about communications competency. We're going to be learning about vocal variety, as well as the power of nonverbals, and last but not least, the business pitch from all of our faculties. This is a very important training because we're all expecting you to make a presentation in front of random strangers on December 10th at the West Loop campus. We have about 25 HCC faculty who have signed up to volunteer to come and listen to your pitches as part of round one of our semestral pitch competition. During this time, you'll have a table, you'll have basically, whatever you want to bring with you, whether it's a poster board or a laptop, or some marketing materials or a presentation that's printed out. Bring whatever you want with you to try to convince or persuade the faculty that your idea solves a problem, plus it's a good commercial idea, and why you should get a chance to win the $2,500 cash award that we have for this semester. So our intent here is to give you what I call a sales pitch environment, where you're at a conference, you're a vendor of this conference, and now you have to convince random strangers about your idea. And then these random strangers, lucky for you, they're HCC faculty. They're there to help you. They come with a variety of expertise and backgrounds, and they may give you some tips or tell you about something you may not have considered, and they'll help you. The whole idea there is that we work collectively with the community, that we actually do customer discovery. We talk to people that do not know about us or our products or our services, and they give us feedback. You collect that feedback, you make your pitch better, and then you get round two, where you're in front of community judges. Not faculty, but actual community judges. And sometimes I joke and I say they're community sharks, because these folks are really in the startup community. They are very focused on investments. They're interested in promoting, small business ownership in town, and they want to see, some hard, great ideas put into action. So they're there to support, but they're also there to ask the tough questions. During that round two, we're going to take top 7. Maybe you get lucky and we take top 9 as 2 wildcard entries. We've done that in the past. But you won't know until the day of, if you're selected for round 2 based on the scoring from round 1. And then ultimately on round 2, you'll get 3 minutes to make your pitch to the community judges, and then they will rate the teams, and the best teams, the best scorers, will get the top prize, first, second, and third place, which all add up to $2,500 of cash. And that is basically what we do every semester. It has now been going for 3 years after the pandemic here. We've ran this is the 5th time. Prior to the pandemic, we had our Ideas Pitchfest for another 4 years. So we're now in our 6th year of operation. And every semester, we find these amazing ideas and amazing students. And then a lot of our students who continue to pursue their entrepreneurial journey, they're finding lots of successes. Everything from filing patents. We have 3 students that have provisional pending patents for their projects, engineering students, cosmetology students. And then we also have students that have won other competitions, such as the Google and Facebook and the American Heart Association's Empower to Serve, as well as the HEB local vendor competition. So all in all, our students are leveraging the resources that we have within the HCC community to support and grow their ideas. So without further ado, I want to quickly ask my faculty from speech to share their slide deck. So if I could get Dr. Stagg to share. There you go. Thank you so much. And today we're going to have three different parts. The first part will be covered by Amy Dopierala, faculty member, speech and communications. She will be covering the effective communications, communication competence, followed by Professor James Duvall, who will be covering local vocal variety. And then we'll have Professor Leigh, Tracy Leigh, who will be presenting on the power of nonverbal. After this, we'll have the last presentation with Mr. David Regenbaum on business pitch. Okay, so with that, I'm going to ask Amy to take it away.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to the Effective Communication Workshop. We're going to start off by talking about what effective communication is, and that really does lead to what is communication competence. What you can see here is communicating in ways that are appropriate, effective, and ethical. And what that really means is knowing how to do it, know why you're doing it, and then be able to apply that to the various contexts while being able to adapt to those situations. You want to be able to know that you're communicating well in the moment. So all of that leads to you being a more competent communicator. And this doesn't happen overnight. This is something that you have to continue to grow and foster through different tools that are available. One of the most important things that you can think about is, again, those three buzzwords: appropriate, effective, and ethical. You don't ever want to compromise your ethics in order to achieve a communication goal. Now that we talked a little bit about communication competence and effective communication, we're going to talk about effective delivery and what that looks like. With regard to effective delivery, the first thing that you want to think about is audience-centered. Effective delivery is audience-centered. The audience is your reason for communicating. They're your reason for being there. They're not just background noise. This is not a theatrical presentation. If you're in theater and you give a presentation or a play, you say the same thing in the same way, no matter who's in the audience. You just continually repeat the same thing. With speeches and communication, you want to make sure that you're cued into the audience and the audience's responses to what you're saying. You have to be interactive. You cannot just be robotic and theatrical. So you really want to make sure that you're striving for that natural conversational approach. You don't have to know everything. You can have notes. You can look down at notes. You can read. You can get your train of thought. It doesn't necessarily all have to be memorized or, again, robotic. You just want it to be a natural conversational way where you're able to make eye contact, where you're able to read your audience's take on what it is that you're saying. You also want to show enthusiasm, but that also needs to be very authentic. You don't want to be fake enthusiastic and come across as disingenuous. So you want to make sure that any enthusiasm that you have really translates to what you're saying and how you're saying it. You also don't want to come in there kind of dejected and I'm not going to succeed kind of thing, because that same lack of enthusiasm is going to transfer to your audience as well. You want to project a sense of confidence, and part of that is preparation. We're going to talk about confidence after we move on past this slide. And you need to be very direct in what you're saying. When you're vague in communication, that leaves a lot of open windows for interpretation, and they may not be interpreting what your intended message is. So you want to make sure that you're direct, you're not vague, you're confident. Okay, moving on, let's talk about some strategies for building your confidence. So again, you want to practice and be prepared, and you want to plan for the unknown. A lot of the reasons that you're not confident when you're speaking is that there's a lot of unknown factors that are beyond your control. And while you can't control every factor, you need to plan for problems. Okay, so yes, you want to visualize success. You do not want to visualize yourself failing. You want to have all the positivity in there. You want to see yourself succeeding. These are all ways to gain confidence. But as part of that, you want to make sure that you're planning for problems. So especially in a persuasive environment, which you're going to be in, you cannot ignore any counter arguments. You cannot plan for perfection and think that everything is going to go according to the way that you see it in your mind or in your head. you have to ask yourself, you have to play the other side of it. If I want you to do this, why would people be against that? What are reasons that they may not want to do this? What are reasons that they may give? And then you need to do your research and make sure that you have those counter arguments already prepared. So part of it, as far as confidence goes, is the anticipation of problems, of pushback, of things that are going wrong. If you think everybody should do this, you need to find out why they're not doing it now and find better reasons for them. So it cannot just be a linear process. It's a very transactional process as far as everything's happening at the same time, and you need to be able to anticipate any pushback that they may be giving to the arguments that you're giving, to the pitch that you're giving. So again, that's a modification of your thoughts and attitudes, because you already are sold on your idea, but you still have to sell others. So you need to make sure that you're planning for their counter arguments. You do want to relax, right? You can do breathing exercises, you can do things, but nerves are not necessarily the worst thing in the world. Nerves mean you care. If you're nervous, you care. And it's okay to admit that you're nervous in things. But confidence is really paramount. You can use movement and gestures and shift the weight on your legs to minimize some anxiety if you have anxiety when you're speaking. But in the end, there's not going to be any substitute for practice and preparation. No matter how practiced and prepared you are, you should continue to practice and prepare. There's no such thing as done. It's a continual process. So those are just some ways that you can build confidence. We're going to move on to the features of effective delivery. And so initially, you want to capture the audience's attention. You want to give them a reason to listen to you. Why are they there? Why is it important? What can you do to capture their attention? You don't want to go pull a fire alarm, right? You need it to be a relevant attention getter for your presentation. You also want to make sure that your purpose is clear and direct. Again, not vague. If it's vague, they can interpret it however they want to interpret it. So you want to make sure that you make your purpose clear. You want to convey all required information, no gaps. So think about giving that to somebody who has not heard it from you and see what questions they may have, what information you're not giving out, and then include that information in your proposal. You should never give your first proposal in this pitch meeting that you're going to have. You should give it to somebody who hasn't heard it before and see what questions they have, how you can make it better. Make sure that you're covering all the information that somebody on the other side of things would want to know. If you're going to use media, it needs to be simplistic. You don't want to use anything that's going to distract from your message. That is not the message. The message is what you're actually conveying to them, not the media itself. And finally, at the end, whenever you are done with your presentation, you want to make sure that you summarize your key points. An example of that would be today, me personally, I've discussed communication competence, effective delivery, how to build confidence, and features of effective delivery. So now I'm going to send it over to my colleague, James, who's going to cover vocal variety.
All right. Good morning, everybody. So it's more than, when it comes to vocal variety, it's more than just the word, because words are very important. Don't get me wrong, but it's also very important in how you say the words as well, because there's so much going on in the nonverbal aspects when it comes to just voicing whatever ideas that you have in mind. And to start off with, let's first talk about volume, rate, and tone. So there's a very, very big difference between projecting your voice, raising your volume for people to listen to you, especially those who are in the back area that at times it can be hard to listen to you if you don't have a microphone at hand to help amplify your voice. There's a difference between projecting your voice and yelling at someone. You can project your voice, you can raise your volume for people to listen to you, but you don't have to yell at all. But it does matter, and it does help with confidence to be able to project your voice for everyone to hear you. Another thing that some people don't realize is sometimes we do have a fast rate of speech. When you slow down just a hint, you'd be very surprised the effect that will come from the audience members, that they see this person with this command and control over their speech. Find the right pace that works for you. Don't go too fast, don't go too slow, but find the right pace, because you'd be very surprised when you find your pace and how the audience will react to you and saying, hey, this person's really good at public speaking. And with that said, that also means being able to strike the right tone. You must be able to read your audience and be able to strike the right tone for the right time. Because sometimes when you read your audience, well, and you just realize, well, maybe this is not really working, let me change it up a little bit more, or go along with the feelings of the audience that they feel. So being able to read the audience and strike the right tone for the message that you're trying to deliver matters quite a lot. One thing I always like to say to my students, please, 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 please don't sound like a robot, because what would it be like if I sounded like this all day, every day, especially for the first 3 minutes of a pitch? It won't work. You have to be able to use your vocal range. Now, for everybody, and I do mean everybody, they do have a low register of their voice and a high register of their voice. I'm not saying for you to always, go low and go high, but it does matter a lot to be able to use all the range that you have appropriately and with purpose, because it does matter at certain points of your speech to use certain lows and certain highs strategically to bring about an effective delivery for your message, which is why it does matter a lot to use all of your vocal range with purpose. And you'd be very surprised in how people will see you as you start to not sound like a robot, but sound like a human being. To the next slide, let's talk about pauses. Using pauses strategically can really amplify your message. As I like to teach students, it's almost like telling a joke. You have the setup, you give it a second or two, and then you deliver the punchline. It's all about timing your pauses, because we all heard the joke before where the punchline came in too early, or when the punchline comes in too late. Same thing when it comes to using pauses in your speeches. It does matter a lot to be able to use a pause in the right way to allow a message to sink in, to bring about drama within the time span that you have in the message. But it does matter in how you time your pauses and where to use them in your speech. You don't want to use them and have a very long pause in between the message, because that will just make things very, very, very uncomfortable for the audience members. So be sure to time your pauses correctly and in the right areas that you want. Another thing, and a lot of people don't realize, but yes, we do use a lot of vocal fillers, or in this case here, as I like to say, disfluencies. And these are the ums, uhs, and likes, and all these sort of things. We all use them in our everyday speech. And sometimes we don't realize that quite a lot. But one of the things we strive for students to do is to make sure that they clean that up. And this is where practice really comes into play, and being able to deliver a speech without the ums, without the uhs, and without the likes as well. And this also goes into the area of being able to say the words with enunciation, pronunciation, and articulation, and being able to say the words correctly. It's a bad look, to be honest, when there is a word that you said that you may have said incorrectly or pronounced incorrectly, and we want to avoid that. So it does matter. And if there's a word, and I know there are plenty of words out there where people can say it one way, people can say it another way. And my ever favorite is pecan and pecan. Of course, pecan is the right way to say it. But there is also pecan, and that's also accepted by people as well. So certain dialects can come into play in this area. But a lot of words, it is understood that there is a appropriate way to say certain words. So be sure to pronounce the words, enunciate the words, and show the inflections in your speech as you are delivering your message. Onward to the next slide, let's talk about painting that picture for the audience, because that does matter a lot. One of the big things I always strive for students to not do is to use jargon. Because you may understand the word just fine and its meaning, but there will be plenty of people that will wonder, what is this person saying? What does this word mean? And that's something we want to avoid, which is why it does matter a lot to be able to keep it simple. When you're able to keep it simple, you're able to be understood much more easily by your audience members and to paint that picture in whatever way you want for the audience members. And this actually gets into another rhetorical device using repetition. Now, I'm not saying a word over and over and over again in every single sentence or in every single paragraph, but it does matter a lot to use repetition strategically and in order to really hammer home the main message that you're trying to get across to your audience members, and to also use personal pronouns to bring about the immediacy between you and the audience members, to have sort of a closer psychological connection that you have with your audience. And this very much helps when you use personal pronouns. A way for us to paint that picture for our audience members is the use of similes, metaphors, and analogies. There's going to be a lot of concepts that you may know, again, very well, but there's going to be times where the audience just does not know what you mean by this. And this is where similes, metaphors, and analogies come into play. Of course, similes is describing something in comparison with a like or as. And in this example here, I would say, oh, you look as beautiful as these stars in the sky. I know, very poetic, but that would be a simile. A metaphor in this case here is life is a road to heaven. I know, going for the beautiful rhetoric here. And my personal favorite analogies, this is where certain concepts where you try to describe something, but you use a concept that the audience already knows very well, and you combine those two together to bring about an understanding of whatever idea or concept you're trying to get across. And this will help quite a lot to build and create and paint that picture, to have the audience have a great understanding of whatever message you're trying to get across. Moving on to the next slide, when it comes to imagery still and help paint that picture, it's, in this case here, a strategic way to use repetition is anaphora and epiphora. An anaphora would be a repetitive word used at the beginning of the sentence. And I would use an example here is, today we are having our students learn. Today we are going to have a great day. And today I hope you are taking in all this great knowledge from all of our great faculty. And you can see what repetition at the beginning of the sentence can do and bring about the attention and the drama that sometimes we want to gain out of our audience. And of course, epiphora, this is where you take that same word and repeat it at the end of the sentence rather than at the beginning. Another way to help build this imagery is the use of parallelism. One of my favorites is by President John F. Kennedy, is ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And you can see with that kind of wording, it brings about a drama and an attention that you want from the audience. And of course, there's antithesis. And one of my personal favorites is, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And again, two clashing ideas with each other, but it does bring the attention from the audience members to you when you use that sort of statement. And please, 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 I would always say, avoid using cliches. And one of the one I always never liked is that's the way the cookie crumbles, and just always irks me. But we do want to avoid cliches because you're all smart people. You can come up with your own words and be very creative at how you want to say it, and be the wordsmith for your audience members. And lastly, in the last slide, I know this is weird. I know this is something that it can be very hard to do, but sometimes you'd be very surprised when you record yourself and watch yourself and listen to yourself, that you'll be able to, see what areas you can work on better, what word slips may have come out. It's a hard thing to do, I am not going to lie, but it does help a lot to help you clean up your speech, to help improve your speech, and to really hone your message to the audience members with your vocal delivery and nonverbals, which we'll talk about in just a sec. But this does work. It's a hard thing to do. I know it is. but it's one of the necessary things to be able to critique yourself. There's a difference between criticizing and critiquing yourself. The thing I want you to do is to critique, see what you can work on better, what you can clean up, and then take it from there. And of course, practice, practice, practice. Practice is a must when it comes to effectively delivering your message. And with that said, I'd like to toss this over when it comes to the power of nonverbal communication to Professor Tracy. Where are you?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Professor James. All right, so let's add to what you just heard. You have worked hard, you've got your message together. Now let's talk about the other half of communication, the power of nonverbal, the power behind that message. So my first slide is we're going to talk about what is it? When I say nonverbal, we're going to break it down and then we're going to put it back together again. So let's start. Let's start with first, what is the definition? It's everything, all the ways we communicate besides those words, okay? So studies have shown that between 65% and 93% of our communication is emotional. They're the nonverbal messaging. And so definitely body language makes up a majority of that, but we just heard James talking about the power of your voice and the power of the word choices. So let's look at what that means when we say power. It just basically is inevitable. Some of the characteristics is that even silence will communicate. You cannot not communicate. So basically, it's inevitable. It's a primary way that we show our emotions is through the nonverbal. It's multi-channeled because you could be talking while, like I'm doing, and using my hands. You could be saying, hi, how are you? And using your nonverbals. But you know what? It's also ambiguous. Many times we can misinterpret someone's nonverbals. It's hard to tell when someone's lying to you. But you know, that's why it has many different functions. So some of the characteristics, it can substitute. Instead of saying, hi, how are you? You can just wave. It can complement. It could regulate as you're talking and you're doing your head nods and you're giving your eye contact, but it can conflict too. It can definitely, you can say those words, but yet your nonverbal say something different. And just remember, the power of the nonverbal is that we believe the nonverbal. So if your friend comes up and you ask how they're doing, and they say, fine, fine, but yet they're sneezing, they're coughing, and they look like they've been crying. You're going to know. You're going to say, no, you don't look like you're doing so fine. And then it also has the power to moderate the verbal. It will help as we're talking, and people will continue talking to you, and you will, and then it repeats. So let's go into a little deeper. So basically, the breakdown, we have them in these categories. And I'm going to touch on those in relation to your upcoming pitch that you're going to be doing. So we're going to look at the physical appearance, the kinesics, your body language, that whole how you use your environment, your face and your eye and your touch and your time. So let's get started. Let's look at the physical. First of all, physical appearance states your credibility. Let's just face it, we put a lot of emphasis on the way people look. So when you have a 3-minute time to convince someone and to persuade someone, the first thing I say is use your physical appearance. If you're coming in here and pitching the fact that we all need to be part of the Astros, then wear your Astro jersey. Use your physical appearance to support your message. And if wearing an Astro jersey isn't appropriate, then definitely look better than your audience is always the guide I say. Look better than your audience. You cannot fail with just using dark clothes. If you don't know what to wear, just go with your blues or go with your blacks. Just keep your appearance from distracting from your message. You want those 3 minutes for when you walk up to show that you're credible, and then not take the message away. So that kind of means that you want to be careful, big earrings and high heels and all this thing. I tell my students to wear clothes that are comfortable, that won't distract you as a speaker. You're thinking, oh my God, I'm going to fall in these heels. Oh my God, my earring. Did I cover up my tattoo? No, just wear clothes that are very comfortable. And I always say, practice with the clothes you're going to wear. Get those clothes together that you want to wear when you give presentations and that you wear when you go on a job interview. Just have them broke in so that when you put them on, you feel that confidence. And the audience, when they see you, they know you're prepared for your 3 minutes. Okay, next point. The whole kinesics. That's your gesture and your posture. So important. When you want to show confidence, and I keep going back to that showing confidence, because that's the power of a nonverbal, is to show that you are prepared and you are confident. Then watch your gestures. You want them to be natural, and your posture, you want to look like you're prepared, that you're energetic. You don't want to be slumped over. You don't want to have your arms folded. You literally want to be open with your body and show that as you walk to that podium, that you're prepared. You're not slumping to it and going slow. You're taking it by command, because you have only 3 minutes. So use your body to build your confidence. Okay, and the next slide we'll go into, there's a picture of nonverbals. When you're slumped over, we think negative images. Okay, then we have our actual proxemics and just that whole space. And to me, being comfortable in a speaking environment is kind of knowing where you're going to speak and using the space there to your advantage. I know we've spent a lot of time during the pandemic talking about personal space. You know, they said 6 feet. Well, in the communication world, we always said 4. But when it came to germs and everything, I guess, you know, we've talked about that 6 feet a lot. But definitely that social space, 4 to 12 feet. If you invade someone's personal space, they get uncomfortable. So when you're giving a speech, just picture yourself, use your actual ability to picture yourself standing in that area. How can you use your space? Do you want to stand behind the podium? Do you want to stand on the other side of it? We'll go into that in a little bit, but definitely know that space is powerful to your audience. Okay, now, all important, eye behavior and facial expression. Honestly, eye behavior builds your trust. Your audience will trust you if you give them eye contact. Just makes sense. When you go to buy something at a store, you're going to see the salesperson get real close to you, maybe even invade a little bit of your space and use their eye contact, because immediately we will trust people that are willing to look at us in the eyes. Now, I know a lot of times, especially in today's wired world, we're looking down at devices, but your 3 minutes is not that time to do that. Your 3 minutes is to use your eyes to connect to your audience. And don't look over their heads. I always say, don't be a balcony gazer with your eyes and just look over their heads. And don't just stare at one person in the audience, because that's kind of a stalker kind of thing. And it makes the other audience members uncomfortable as well as that one person. So what you want to strive to do is use your eyes to just naturally look around the room. Just naturally. Don't be this head bobber like I just did. Instead, you want to just glide your eyes around and give people your eyes. And again, this comes, I know we've harped on this, but you need to practice. The reason why is because if you haven't practiced and you're reading your note cards the whole time and looking down at that, you miss this opportunity to have your audience connect with you and to trust you. And that's all what you need to do for persuasion, is to get their trust and them to buy into your argument. So use your eyes for that. And then it goes without saying, the smile. But we'll come back to the smile. Okay, time. Yes, you have 3 minutes. In North America, we put a lot of emphasis on time. You know, we even get paid by the hour. We have stopwatches, our phones have watches. We all are cognitively aware of time. You have got to do that as well for your presentation. Use your time wisely, and definitely start on time and end on time, because that builds your credibility as well. Okay, let's keep going. Let's look now if we put all of them together. If we put like each one of them, the metaphor I use is each one of them is like a tree. And a tree in a yard, I have one little tree in my front yard. That's it. And it's easy to mow around. And it says one thing. But if you put it in a group of trees, if you pull these nonverbals together, they're powerful. And then when you have a forest of nonverbals, you can communicate together. So I've just broken down the codes. Now let's bring them together and see what you can do with that audience. Let's go to the next slide there. First of all, you actually, by pulling them together, you're making impressions, right? And the impression you want to do, is to be more confident, right? All of us can agree to that. But how you start with that is by using your nonverbals to show that. And maybe you don't feel it. So that's why practice, practice, practice. Know where your weaknesses are. Know yourself. And then practice at those. James mentioned the videoing yourself. I know it's uncomfortable, but this is an excellent way for you to be able to look at your nonverbals, is to have someone video you, and then you look at it yourself. What is a natural way for you to use your hands? What is a natural way for you to use the podium? You may decide that the podium makes you uncomfortable, so you need to step over a little bit. That it comes from practice, and that comes from you seeing. And then you cannot underestimate the power of having an audience member. And I'm not talking about your mama or your grandma, because I know when my grandkids and my daughter, they give speeches and they want me to critique it, I'm really nice to them. I'm like, oh, this is so important. No, you want the person that's going to go, you know what? You're dropping your words at the end of your sentence. You know what? You didn't look at me. You looked over my head. You want that type of critic of a friend that's going to sit in the back of the room, make sure they can hear you all the way at the back, and then give you feedback on your nonverbals. And just be true to yourself. That's all we want. We don't want a computer speaking. So just use your nonverbals to be true, meaning if it feels stiff and it feels wrong, then don't do it. Make this about your message. Use that power. Okay, so I've told you real quickly. I've gone through all the codes, gone through all the different ways of power. I'm going to turn it back over to Ravi.
All right. Sure. All right. Am I audible? Yes, it looks like I'm good. So thank you so much. That's so far so good. We've covered communication competence, vocal variety, and then also the power of nonverbals. Thank you so much from our faculty at Speech and Communications Department at HCC. Now we'll focus a little bit on business pitch, and to share more, we have Mr. David Regenbaum, who is a board chairman for the HCC Foundation. Prior to his arrival into the US, David Regenbaum practiced as an attorney in South Africa. During the 1979, David relocated to Houston and established Association Management, Inc., AMI, which is a company that achieved remarkable growth and prestige under David's leadership. And while David was the CEO of AMI, he also served as the president of Community Association Institute and the dean of its education committee. In 2014, David sold AMI to First Service Residential, effectively earning him his American dream. But since his retirement, David has commenced his encore career and serves as the faculty of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program, which is administered by Houston Community College. and is also the entrepreneur in residence for the Glenda and David Center for Entrepreneurship at the Northwest College of Houston Community College. Lastly, as mentioned earlier, David also serves as the chairman of the board of directors for the Houston Community College Foundation. He definitely knows about business pitches as well as you're always pitching in life. So David, I'm going to pass it over to you, sir, and take it away when you're ready.
Thank you, Ravi. I appreciate that. One of the things that I want to start off with is the Centers for Entrepreneurship at HCC have had remarkable success in the last few years. And when you look back at the awards that they have received, in 2020, the centers were the Entrepreneurial College of the Year from the National Association of Community College Entrepreneurship. In 21, they received the Diversity in Business Award from the Houston Business Journal. And in 22, the Bellwether College Consortium Award that was presented earlier this year. And recently, we received the Excellence in Specialty Entrepreneurship from the Global Consortium for Entrepreneurship Centers. That is a worldwide award that we received at HCC. We can be very proud of HCC and what the achievements are of HCC. So what is a pitch? Anytime you ask someone for something, you are making a pitch. And when I think back at this kind of statement, one of the participants in these programs was the head of the Montessori school in Kingwood. And she related this to asking 3-year-olds to eat their vegetables. She was making a pitch to a 3-year-old to eat their vegetables. That is something that you can see. Pitches don't only go into the business aspect, they go into all aspects of your communication. So a pitch is any time you are asking anybody for something. There are 9 clear aspects of a pitch. The first is, and you've heard this from the others, be concise, be clear, and be compelling. Those are the 3 of the 9 C's of making a pitch. When you make a pitch, you need to be concise. You need to use words clearly. You need to make them absolutely avoid, as I think it was James said, jargon. Be compelling and be credible. We will talk about these a little later in this presentation, but credibility is fundamental to your success. You cannot succeed without the audience believing you in what you're saying. Be conceptual. Give the entire concept to the audience, but at the same time, be concrete. You need to balance conceptual information with concrete information that you're presenting. Be customized. Customize your speech to the audience. It is important that if you're going to make a speech, if you're going to make a pitch, whatever you do, you need to know who your audience is and customize your speech to the audience. You need to know exactly what they want. Investigate the audience before you go to be in front of them to make your speech. Be consistent. Always be clear, be compelling, be concise, credible, all of these things, but be consistent in the way you approach your speech. And then, as I think it was Amy said, be conversational. Don't yell at the audience. James mentioned this. Be conversational, and the more conversational you are, the more compelling the speech is, the more credible your speech will be, and you'll have a far greater acceptance if you're conversational in your speech. Credibility is the ultimate goal of speeches. You cannot succeed in business unless people believe you. Believing you is absolutely essential in what you do. So credibility is something that you cannot avoid being credible to be successful. The audience will assess your credibility within 7 seconds. As you walk onto that stage, as the audience sees your dress, your appearance, your posture, your way that you walk onto the stage, all of that is sending a message, and the audience immediately looks at you and decides whether you're credible or not, whether they're going to listen to you or not. So credibility is an essential initial factor, and it takes only 7 seconds for the audience to make that assessment of you, and therefore it is important that you take the advice that you've heard this morning about the dress, about your posture, about the way you appear as you present to the audience. From a business point of view, one of the aspects of presenting your pitch is, what problem are you solving? What problem does the audience have, do members of the audience have, and that you are coming with a solution? And what is your solution? What is your, how are you going to solve my problem? How are you going to help me improve the way I live, improve the way I enjoy my life? Who is your target audience? And as I've said earlier, know your target audience and present your speech focused on that audience. From a business point of view, what is your market opportunity? Is there a market for the solution that you are providing? If there is no market, if you can't sell what you're providing to an audience, to the public, then there is no market. And next is your competitive advantage. How do you compare to your competitors? What is something new? What is something different? How do you distinguish yourself or your solution from your competitors? What is the advantage of buying your product or service compared to buying someone else's product or service? And always have an ask. If you're in business and you're pitching something, if you're a salesman, you need to be able to ask the customer, what would you like? How would you want this presented? How are you going to pay for it? Or whatever the ask is. But the closing and the ask becomes a very important element of what you're doing. So absolutely essential, know your product or service. You need to know every aspect of it, because if you don't and you get a question, it's no good saying, well, I'll look into it and get back to you. That's not going to help your pitch. Your pitch must, your information, your product, your service, presented as others have said, practice it in front of people that you can trust to give you an honest answer, and ask them to ask you any question and see if you can get the answer to that. Knowing your product or service, people assume you do, but you need to make sure that you do. Identify the need, the benefit, and the results to the audience. Is the audience aware of the problem? Are they affected by the problem? And will they be benefiting from what you provide to them? Knowing your audience is something that you need to investigate and need to know well in advance of your presentation. Be passionate about its value to customers. Passion is a fundamental aspect of any presentation. You must believe in yourself. You must believe in your product. You must be really passionate and show your passion about the product. Know your competitors. Do research on the competitors. Know what they are offering and how your product differentiates itself from what they're offering. Your product may be a service. It may be a product that you are selling to them, but in whatever you're selling, know what your competitors are offering and see that you are differentiating yourself. And then build a story. Your pitch presentation must have a great beginning, a focus in the center, and an end in which you summarize what you said in the beginning. From a presentation to a bank or a lender, you need to know the financial aspects of your product. what the startup costs are in producing your product or service, what your working capital will be, your revenue projections, and what is the break-even point? What is the cost benefit to your audience and to the lender or seller that you're talking to? Where's the break-even, and how are you going to make profits? Any lender or any person that is investing in your business is going to know where is the profit, because if you don't make profit, you don't have the ability to pay them back. So profitability becomes an essential element of what you're presenting. Simon Sinek, who has a great number of presentations in the TED program, and I've given you the TED contact information here, or link information, talks about the three elements of how you present, how you prepare your presentation. First of all, what do you do? Most people understand what you do. It's very easy to understand what you do. How do you do it? Some people will understand how you do it. But the most important element of his three elements are why. Why do we do it? People buy from people that they believe in, that they trust, that they want to do business with, they want to relate to, and the why becomes the important. So talk about the what, talk about the how, but focus on the why. The why is the crucial element in what you're selling. We've discussed this just previously, and other speakers have spoken about the efficient, effective, and compelling way of presenting your proposal. Talk about the simple and memorial, convincing way. Don't use expressions like, I want to, I would like to. Be positive. I am going to. This product will. It's not, we hope that this product will. So be convincing and be positive. The more positive you are, the better your product will be. Let's talk about the 1 minute pitch. We have a 1 minute pitch, which we typically call an elevator pitch. And then we have the 3 minute pitch in some competitions, 4 minute pitches. The business plan competition of HCC has a 15-minute pitch. So pitches go in various stages. You need to look at the initial aspect of 1 minute and then build from there. The shorter that initial pitch is, the better it is. So I'm going to be looking at the headline, and then we'll talk about who are you, what's your relevant background, do you have the knowledge or ability to continue this proposal, what is the connection, what are you trying to accomplish for me, make the ask and close out. All of those are aspects of your pitch. But the one that's important is the headline. I subscribe to a number of magazines, and most of them are digital magazines. And every morning I look at my phone or computer, and I look at the email that I received from the various magazines. And what do I look for is the simple headline. Apple secretly uses these 3 interview tests. Now, do I have an interest of that or not? That's the headline. Do I have an interest? If I don't have an interest, I don't even click on it. With one sentence, Mark Cuban just provided the perfect definition of capitalism. Is that of interest to me? And the use of numbers is an important, relevant factor in the initial pitch, the initial headline. 3 interview tests, 1 sentence. You'll see a lot of that in these headlines. And yet another study confirms you're wildly underestimating how much people want to help you. Is that of interest to me? So these headlines, I just glance through them, and then I click on the headline that I'd like to read and to get more information. Let's talk about some of the headlines. Steve Jobs, when he first developed the iPod, said, the iPod allows you to carry 1,000 songs in your pocket. This was his initial pitch on the iPod. sorry, excuse me. Mary, excuse me 1 second. The founders of Google had a fabulous pitch. Google organizes the world's information and makes it universally accessible. Just think about what Google has done. We carry in our phone the wealth of information that was contained in thousands of books in a library. And Google has organized this and makes it universally acceptable. How often do you take your phone out to get an answer to a question, no matter what the question is? So looking at that pitch, looking at that headline is really instinctive as to what we're doing today. Sandra Lubier, the director of our Center of Entrepreneurship Northwest, says HCC creates a pathway for lifelong learning for entrepreneurs from launch to exit strategy. She has encapsulated everything that we do, and all of the personnel that we have, all of them are focused on this one aspect, this one element of what we do. So she has encapsulated all of this in a headline that is really relevant. So how do you go about creating a headline? The thing that is essential to doing this is to think of all of your ideas, brainstorm all of your ideas, and put every single facet of every idea on a Post-it note, and post all of these Post-it notes on a board, on a wall, wherever you like, and look through those, and then select 5 important ones. Which are the 5 most important elements of your idea that you're trying to pitch? Those 5 become the nucleus of what you're going to be doing, and then take it from there. And if you need to build from 5 to 10 minutes or whatever the time frame is, you can take it and start building on it by going to the next stage. But the first stage in what you're doing is bringing this all together into as many aspects as you can, and then focusing on the 5 most important aspects. As an example, my granddaughter, 10-year-old granddaughter, used her mother for her brainstorming exercise. She posted all of these Post-it notes on my daughter, and then picked the ones that were most important to her school presentation. So they're learning this in middle school, and it's really an incredible facet of how do you create your pitch? How do you prepare your pitch? Another way of doing your pitch idea is to use mind mapping. Mind mapping is a way of emptying your mind onto some type of presentation that you can see and decide what are the critical issues, what are the pressing challenges, and what actions you need to take now. So what is a mind map? This is an example of a mind map in a business. Your business plan is central to your business success. So first of all, you do the company. What does it offer? What things do you do? What is unique about your company? And you can spread these branches into smaller and more detailed elements. Who is your market? Who are your customers, competitors, and use? What do you have that? What the ages of the customers are, the gender, the income, who are they? Do your homework and investigate that. Your product or service, what are the benefits of your product or service? All of those must be detailed on this mind map. The management team, what credibility do you have for the ability of the management team to present and to put into production your product or idea? Strategy to do so. Financials, very important to do a financial cash flow basis, and break even. When is your break even? Your predictions, and then look at an executive summary of what you're doing, because this becomes the part of from the executive summary, you will look and determine what your headline is going to be. So this is another way of doing it, as opposed to the Post-it notes. There are computer programs that will give you the ability to do this, but it's another way of looking at taking what's in your mind, taking all of your ideas and putting them on paper so that you can really understand and see all the facets at one time, because you cannot focus on them without seeing them in some format that you can look at. So what are the key to doing a presentation? Megan Eddings, the founder and CEO of Excel Lifestyle, won the pitch presentation competition at the City of Houston's liftoff competition. She won the business plan competition at HCC, and she speaks of these 7 aspects: confident body language and voice, your posture, your smile, how you move, your eye contact. All of these previous speakers have spoken about. Show that there is a market and why you are the best solution. Again, is there potential in what you're presenting? The credibility of the foundation, of the founder and the team. Megan Eddings was a chemist, and she gave herself credibility to determine that she had the ability to create the product. Be realistic with your projections. Don't overestimate. Be conservative. Videotape, and this has been presented before in this morning's presentation. Videotape your pitch many times. Have others provide feedback too. It is so important that you see yourself and hear yourself and determine where you can make the improvements. Simple and concise slides. Don't have the judges or the audience reading the slide and not listening to you. It's important that that they focus on you. So have slides that don't detract from your presentation. And the slide that you're seeing now is probably a bad example of a good slide, because it has too much information on it. And when I presented the slide, the audience was reading that and not thinking of me and not listening to me. So this is an example of the type of slide that's got too much information. Dress professionally. The first impression will be you, not your pitch. Again, you've heard this from previous speakers, and it's worth repeating time and time again. And then practice. Nothing succeeds without practice, whether you're a musician, whether you're a sports person, whether you're whatever you're doing, you need to practice. The more practice you have, the better your presentation will be. You can see someone here practicing in front of the mirror. You know that you play soccer, football, baseball, basketball. You need to practice no matter what you're doing in life. Practice is ultimately the most important thing. And with that, I will turn it back to Ravi and say, thank you, Ravi. I hope that this presentation was useful to the audience. Thank you.